Contrary to what you might have read on Reddit, arc radius does have damage drop-off. And it's not one simple fixed rule for every weapon. Some guns start losing damage as close as 20 meters, some weapons still deal damage past 400 meters, and one weapon I tested stopped doing damage completely past 200 meters. The confusion probably started because when players tested weapons in their small practice range, they did not notice normal damage drop-off. On top of that, arc radius originally did not clearly explain damage drop-off in-game, so it was easy to assume that range did not matter. Then I saw a comment under my last video claiming that arc radius has one fixed damage drop-off rule, 40 damage reduction past 200 meters for all weapons. And I knew that could not be true, so I tested it. My main method was simple. I shot large arc from different distances, pinged them to check the range, and used the XP pop-up to calculate the damage. Against large arc, the game gives 2 XP for every 1 damage. So if a shot gives 90 XP, that means I did 45 damage. I also convert some of these numbers with PvP shots, but PvP is much harder to test cleanly because you do not get the XP damage pop-up, the journey tab can be buggy, and shields makes the number harder to read. After testing, the main pattern is clear. Damage drop-off mostly depends on ammo type, not whether the weapon is a pistol, rifle, sniper or revolver. Bullet velocity and bullet drop are separate from damage drop-off. A gun can feel like a long-range weapon because the bullet is fast and easy to aim, but that does not automatically mean it keeps full damage farther. Let's start with light ammo. Light ammo does full damage until 130 meters. For example, the Hairpin does 20 damage per shot up to 130 meters. After 130 meters, the damage starts dropping fast. At 140 meters, the Hairpin does 16 damage. At 150 meters, it drops to 12 damage. That is a 40% damage reduction, and past 150 meters, it stays at 12 damage, even if you shoot from extreme distances like 300 or 400 meters. So for light ammo, the rule is simple. Full damage under 130 meters, damage drops between 130 and 150 meters, and past 150 meters, you are doing 60% of your normal damage. Medium ammo starts dropping later. In my testing, medium ammo does full damage until 150 meters. Then it drops between 150 and 170 meters. Past 170 meters, it reaches the same maximum 40% damage reduction. This means a Venator pistol and the Osprey sniper have the same damage drop-off because they both use medium ammo. That might feel strange because the Osprey clearly feels like a longer range weapon. It's much easier to aim at long range. But for damage drop-off, it still follows the medium ammo range. Heavy ammo gets even more range. Heavy ammo does full damage until 180 meters, then it drops between 180 and 200 meters. Past 200 meters, it reaches the maximum 40% damage reduction. This means an Anvil revolver keeps full damage 30 meters farther than a scoped Osprey sniper, not because Anvil is easier to shoot at long range, because it's definitely not, but because Anvil uses heavy ammo while Osprey uses medium ammo. That is the important distinction. Bullet velocity and damage drop-off are not the same thing. So for the basic ammo types, the pattern is clear. Light ammo starts dropping at 130 meters and reaches maximum drop-off at 150 meters. Medium ammo starts dropping at 150 meters and reaches maximum drop-off at 170. Heavy ammo starts dropping at 180 meters and reaches maximum drop-off after 200. Now energy weapons get weirder. The Aphelion behaves like the medium ammo group. It starts losing damage at 150 meters and past 170 meters it settles at 40% less damage. Jupiter behaves more like heavy ammo. Its damage starts dropping at 180 meters and past 200 meters it also does 40% less damage. That is important for PvE. For example, if you're fighting a turbine with Jupiter, 150 to 180 meters is a great practical range because you can stay outside the lightning attack while still avoiding the damage drop-off. If you go past 200 meters, Jupiter still works, but you start paying for that extra safety with 40% lower damage. But Equalizer is different. Equalizer does full damage until 100 meters. After that, the damage slowly starts dropping. Around 185 meters, it settles at about 50% damage. So unlike the normal ammo groups, Equalizer does not drop to 60% damage, it drops to 50% damage. And then it gets even stranger. Past 200 meters, Equalizer does not keep doing 50% damage. It seems to stop hitting completely. It looks like the laser beam itself has a hard range limit of 200 meters. Past that, the beam does not connect and you do zero damage. That is very different from weapons like Jupiter, Hairpin or even shotguns, which can still damage arc and raiders from extreme range if the projectile or pellets actually connect. Equalizer is the first weapon I tested where the range did not just reduce damage, but appeared to completely stop the weapon from hitting past a certain point. Now let's talk shotguns. Shotguns are harder to test because pellet spread makes clean numbers messy. Past a certain range, you cannot reliably land every pellet, even on a huge arc like Queen or Matriarch. So with shotguns, you are fighting two problems at once: damage drop-off and pellet spread. From the March patch notes, we know that Toro's maximum damage drop-off was changed from 40% to 50%. In testing, Toro started losing damage very early, around 20 meters. At close range, one shot did 63 damage or 126 XP. If the maximum drop-off is 50, that means it should settle around 31.5 damage or 63 HP, and that is what I started seeing around 45 meters range. So for Toro, damage drop-off starts around 20 meters and it seems to finish around 45 meters. But realistically, at that range your bigger problem is not even damage drop-off, it's the pellet spread. Against a player of small arc you are not landing every pellet anyway. Against something huge like a Queen or Matriarch can get cleaner readings, but it's not the same as a real fight against smaller targets. Vulcano seems similar. Below 20 meters I was getting 99 XP, which means 49.5 damage. At 24 meters I got 90 XP or 45 damage. So my guess is that Vulcano uses a similar early shotgun drop-off pattern, but I will still treat these exact numbers as harder to test because of pellet spread. I also confirmed some of this data with PvP shots. For example, my PvE data showed that Hairpin does 20 damage up to 130 meters, 16 damage around 140 meters, and 12 damage past 150 meters. So I shot a player from 140 meters away, and the journey tab showed 16 damage, which matched the PvE data. I also tested shots with weapons like Venator, Ferro, and Osprey inside the drop-off ranges I found from PvE, and numbers look consistent. But PvE testing is much less clean. You do not get the XP damage pop-up, so you have to rely on the journey tab. The journey tab does not always shows every hit, and most players carry shields, so you are often reading damage deflected by the shield instead of clean health damage. It's a strange request for me to shoot you just once with a hairpin. I wanna test something. So unless you are testing with a friend, a known shield and a fully charged shield, PvP damage testing is much messier than PvE damage testing. For PvP, I honestly do not think damage drop-off matters in most fights. Look at what 140 meters or 190 meters actually look like in game. At that distance, players are tiny and very hard to spot. That is not a normal fight range for most players. My guess is that in more than 95% of PvP fights, damage drop-off is not a deciding factor. The main exception is long-range sniping. If you are using something like Osprey from long range, then drop-off can matter. For PvE, damage drop-off matters a lot more. Arch are huge targets. It is hard to hit a player from 200 meters, but it's easy to hit a Queen, Matriarch, Rocketeer or Turbine from long range. And long range is often the safest way to fight them. For example, shooting Rocketeer propellers before it gets close, or staying at least 150 meters away from a turbine so you are outside its lightning attack range, or farming Queen and Matriarch damage from a safer position. This is where knowing drop-off ranges becomes useful. If you are using a weapon that has already hit its maximum drop-off, you might still be safer, but you are also wasting a lot of damage. And against big arc that matters. A 40% damage reduction is not small when you are shooting thousands of hit points. There is one major exception: Hullcracker. From my testing, Hullcracker ammo does not seem to have normal damage drop-off. That makes sense because the damage comes from the grenade explosion, not from a normal bullet. So you can lob Hullcracker shots past 200 meters and still get the same explosive damage. The hard part is not the range drop-off. The hard part is actually hitting the weak spot from that far away. Now, one important warning. All these damage numbers are based on hitting 100% soft spots on arc. Arc do not have one universal damage value across the whole body. Some spots take bonus damage, cores and power cells take 150% damage. Some non-armored parts take reduced damage even though they are not traditional armor. Some parts can be as low as 40% damage. For example, the silver rim on the top of the turbine only takes 40% damage. So if an Osprey normally does 45 damage and you hit the turbine's silver top rim from long range, the damage gets reduced twice. First by the turbine's 40% hitbox modifier, and then again by medium ammo range drop off. That is how a 45 damage shot will end up doing only 10.5 damage. So if your damage numbers look weird against arc, do not immediately assume the range test is wrong. You might be hitting a different arc body part with a different multiplier. Finally, extended barrel actually does what it says. Extended barrel 3 increases the damage fall off distance by 15%. For example, with Ferro, damage normally starts dropping at 180 meters and reaches maximum drop off at 200 meters. With extended barrel 3, that start point moves to 207 meters and the maximum drop off point moves to 230 meters. So extended barrel can matter if you are doing long range arc fighting or long range sniping. But for normal PvP, I would not use it. Most players fight happens close enough that drop off never becomes important. So here's my final takeaway. Arc Raider does have damage drop off. It's not one universal 200 meter rule. For standard ammo, light drops first, medium drops second, and heavy drops last. Energy weapons have their own weird exceptions. Shotguns lose damage very early, but pellet spread matters even more. Hullcracker does not seem to have normal drop off because it deals explosive damage, and extended barrel really does push the drop off range farther. For PvP, do not worry too much about damage drop off unless you are sniping, but for PvE, especially against big arc, learn your weapon's effective range, because 40%, 50% or even 100% damage loss is usually not worth getting just a few extra meters of safety.